Some exchange betting companies run short-lived promotions, like months-long offers of low commission. At BetDAG, we wanted to change the way we did things, so we set our commission at 2% permanently. That's 2% on football, horse racing, golf, almost any sport. 2%. That's just one way that BetDAG is changing for the better. For the better, like you. BetDAG, the 2% commission exchange.
Over 18s only, please gamble responsibly.
Hello and welcome back to the ROKER RAPPORT podcast. Today we've probably got the ultimate special guest with us. Opposite me right now sits the only British man ever to win the European Golden Boot, former England international, I think my stats are right, but scorer of 113 Sunderland league goals, and a man we know simply as Super Kev. How are you doing, Kevin? Are you well?
Yeah, I'm great. It's nice to be introduced like that. Don't get introduced like that very often. But, yeah, delighted to be here and thanks for having us. And always love coming back to the city and looking forward to chat.
So I always like to start with an icebreaker. I'm not very good at them, if I'm honest, but I asked Nicky Summerby a similar question and it was quite a good little icebreaker. In the Sunderland squad, who was the best drinker?
Oh, I'd have to say I was up there.
Yeah.
But only being 5'7", I couldn't carry as much as probably. It's got to be Quinny.
Everyone said Quinny.
Yeah, Quinny was an awesome drinker, and there's many. I'm doing a talking tonight, and I quite often refer back to Niall when people ask questions about having social evenings. So certainly, big Niall can drink a pint of Guinness, and I certainly wouldn't want to have a competition with him. Let's put it that way.
He's quite a big lad. He's hard to fill up, I can imagine.
Well, he's a pint glass in his hand looks like a half pint glass. So it's about 4 or 5 mouthfuls, and he can down a pint. But yeah, he was a top drinker.
So going all the way back to the beginning, 1997, you're doing well at Watford. I remember you had an injury, I think, just beforehand. Yep. But Peter Reid and Sunderland come in. You're from Hitchin?
Stevenage, yeah. Born in Hitchin, yeah. Stevenage just down the road, yeah.
So you're a Southern lad. I imagine there was maybe some doubts about moving. Were there any doubts, and what convinced you to move to the club?
Yeah, well, yeah, there was. It's simple, really, yeah. Like you say, I started at Watford, was going very well. Unfortunately, I had a year out injured. When I come back from injury, I started scoring again, and I was getting towards the end of my contract, and Graham Taylor had just come in. Glenn Roeder got sacked, and we couldn't agree a contract, to be honest.
Yeah.
So as agents do, and I do, I said, let's have a look at elsewhere. And we managed to get a chat with Ipswich at the time. George Burley was the manager. So we had a drive up there, had a chat with them. We agreed personal terms, but the club couldn't agree a fee because they had a player. They couldn't agree a fee, so it would have had to go to a tribunal at the time, but they'd already had a player going to tribunal, and apparently you couldn't have two going at the same time. So it was going to be a case of just sitting and waiting. And we're sitting in Ipswich's car park. And I said, I don't want to wait. I said, what are we going to do? I said, it's made clear, really, we're not going to agree terms at Watford. This ain't going to happen quickly. I want something to happen. So my agent just went, right. I said, I'm going to ring Peter Reid. He said, I know he likes you. He said, I spoke to him. He said, you impressed him when you played for Watford up at Roker Park. He said, I'll give him a ring, see what he says. So I said, well, don't let him know I'm sitting in the car with you. So we get him on speakerphone. Believe it or not, they did have speakerphones 20 odd years ago.
Yeah, geez, doesn't seem that long good, does it?
Yeah, so he got Reedy on the phone, and Reedy was his bubbly usual self, and my agent explained to him the situation. He said, would you be interested? Reedy went 100%. He said, get the lad up here. He said, definitely. So I was delighted, but I was also nervous because, as you rightly said, a Southern boy, only on the coach have ever been further up north off the coach, play a game and get back. But having the thought of actually having to move and live miles and miles away from home was quite daunting. But, we put the phone down. I went, right, I'll go and speak to my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. And we was expecting our first baby in December. I just went back and said, look, what do you think? And I'd recently lost my father. And I just felt it was right. It was the right time, and I need to get away from the area. And so I just went, let's go for it. Packed the car up, left the house at 5 o'clock the next morning, weren't too sure where I was going, and you could probably say the rest was history.
Good decision, you could say.
Yeah, I would have to say, you make good decisions and bad decisions in your life, and, generally good decisions come from me, on the spur of, let's just do it. and ultimately it's down to yourself to make it work. But yeah, you're right. If to be fair, if the missus had turned around and said, I don't feel comfortable, then it probably wouldn't have happened. So, she said, let's go for it. And as I say, the rest is history.
Now, it was my first season as a season ticket holder. I remember it quite well. And I remember you hit the ground running, like immediately. Obviously, the first game you were suspended. I think Sheffield United.
Yeah, that's a story in itself, because I forgot to tell Peter Reid. To be honest, I forgot myself. So when I came up and signed, it never even got mentioned. And it was literally only probably a week before the game that it clicked that I was suspended. And I was the most nervous person ever, having to tell Reedy. And to be fair, he wasn't too pleased about it. But, it was, I quickly found out that, you don't want to upset Reedy too much. So he kind of forgave us on the promise that I would, maybe score in the next game and like you say, hit the ground running. Luckily I did.
Why do you think you did hit the ground running so fast?
I think there's probably a combination of things. I think, at Watford, my goals per game ratio was good. I was always confident in my own ability. That's not being arrogant. That's not being big-headed, but that's just the way I have been. And also, I think playing in a team that created opportunities, it's as simple as that. You can't score. I wasn't a player that, someone like a Thierry Henry, who's one of my heroes in the Premier League, that could pick it up 50, 60 yards from goal, take on 4 players and slot it in the bottom corner. That wasn't my game. I relied on people creating opportunity. Don't get me wrong, I could create in and around the edge of the box, get half a yard, turn, shoot. But you've got to have good players around you. You've got to have supply. You've got to have people crossing the ball, sliding you in down the side of centre half. So that was probably one of the biggest attributes of the side, was creating opportunities. And at the end of the day, Reedy just said to me, get yourself in the box. Whenever the ball goes wide, get yourself in the box. Always play on the last man. I was fairly quick. Get yourself in behind defenders and we'll find you. So, it was one of these. But also, you got to have that self-belief.
Yeah, of course.
And it was quite daunting, don't get me wrong, coming from Vicarage Road, which is a nice stadium. Coming to the stadium alight in front of, the supporters that we both know that are incredible.
Yeah.
Expectation was very high because of the just come out of the Premier League. I suppose the unknown, people not knowing who I was as well, made it a little bit easier. And the pressure probably came more as I started scoring more goals.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, people know who you are and the pressure becomes bigger. But I enjoyed it and I thrived on it.
It was probably one of my favourite seasons as a fan in memory, but it started quite toxic in a sense. I remember the Norwich game. Did you ever think around that period, like before, like up to like the Reading game, were you thinking maybe this is the wrong...
It was, but I was scoring goals.
Yeah, of course.
And, it's a strange one because every centre forward, and I don't care what they tell you, they're selfish. And I was no different. And it's one of those, whether it's right or wrong, you come off after a game, if you'd been beaten 4-1, but you'd scored, you kind of half of you's thinking, or part of you's thinking, I've done my job. Which, we could argue about that, day and night, but that's just the way strikers are.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I was scoring goals, so I felt good in myself, but ultimately it's a team game and things, collectively, wasn't great. And the Reading game was, probably one of the most that hit home to me down at Elm Park. I came off the bench and scored, I think, that day. 4-1, I got the goal and we got battered. And I remember the walk from the changing room to the bus, the supporters were going mental, and it kind of, from that, I would say the disappointment, the anger, the aggression shown towards us, there's a funny story comes out of it because John Cook, the kit man at the time, thought he was immune to it. And even he got abuse when he walked in and apparently someone said, you were rubbish when you played for Sunderland as well. So everyone got it that day, apart from myself. So it was it wasn't great, but that's the sign of a good manager, a good team, that we turned it round and really kicked on.
The season itself, obviously, we turned that round, really, really turned it around, went on an unbelievable run. Do you see similarities, though, between like the team of 97, 98 and the team that Sunderland have now, where we're kind of chasing that top two because we've had a bit of it wasn't a similar kind of period, but we had that period where we drew a lot and we seem to be catching up now in sort of current day. Do you feel like a similarity of that?
I suppose, I haven't really thought about it until now. You've posed a question. So, from the outside looking in, it's that expectation, isn't it? Sunderland have come out the Championship. They've got the biggest budget. They can afford to go and get the best players. They sign a player for what, 3 or 4 million in Will Grigg.
Yeah.
Not many League One teams can do that. And at the time, we just come out of the Premier League. We were able to hold on to our best players. We were able to bring Clough in, who's on, big money at the time.
Yeah.
Being able to bring other players in and hold on to players. So there is a similarity in that. The expectation is no different. So yeah, at that season we drew a lot of games. Sunderland have drew a lot of games this season. So yeah, you're right. And it could end up in Sunderland being in a playoff final this year, the same as us.
Against Charlton.
Against Charlton. Yeah. So it would be quite bizarre, but football has a habit of throwing those sort of things up, doesn't it?
It does.
We don't want that to happen. I'd love to see him go up automatically, but it's going to go right to the end. So yeah, there's definitely similarities between the two seasons, and I hope that they go that one step more than what we did.
Me as well, mate. Me as well.
Yeah, what I would say about, in our year, I think it probably, in hindsight, it was probably the best thing that happened to us not going up that season, because the second season we adapted, we was able to, bring more players in. We knew what the league, and then we went on, and I think it set us up as a club and as a squad more for the Premier League than if we had gone up that season. Yes, of course you want to bounce back straight away, but I think not going up really, it sounds bizarre, but as you saw the season after, we romped it, by a country mile. And then obviously the 2 seasons in the Premier League, it speaks for itself.
Yeah, of course. There's so much stuff I could cover about that season, to be honest, but you were here a good 6 seasons, so I wanted to go straight to the game that sticks out for me from that season, atmosphere-wise, the Sheffield United semi-final.
Yeah.
What are your memories of that day? Because it was electric that night.
The best atmosphere, apart from probably Newcastle at home in the 2-2 draw when I scored the equaliser, that was incredible. Yeah, I would have to say, having get the winning goal that night, albeit I think it was a deflected, it hit me and just went in.
He kind of side-footed
a kind of reaction finish, but the noise was incredible because we got fairly done over down there. It was an uncomfortable day, or I think it was an evening. So we knew what was at stake. Full house, and I have to say that the atmosphere in that goal winning was electric, and that really hit home. I would have to say my opening goal against Man City, the winning goal, I hadn't experienced anything like that before, but to get that, that night that's probably, when people do ask me about atmospheres, that is right up there with it. The Wembley goal and the Newcastle goal. It was an incredible evening. It was fantastic to get through that tie. Then we had a little bit of rest period before the final.
For the playoffs, obviously you came off injured. You would have took a penalty though, I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't come off injured. I came off with cramp.
It was a cramp?
Yeah, believe it or not, because I got injured I took a knock in the Sheffield United game, and we had 10 days before the final, and I didn't train for nearly a week. So I didn't do a lot of training. Believe it or not, Reedy took us away for a few days for a bit of one of Reedy's famous 3 or 4 days chill out, which turned into a bit of a social. So I didn't train, obviously had a bit of a social, and the adrenaline perhaps didn't take on enough fluids before the game.
Yeah.
It was a hot day, big old pitch. It just took its toll. So yeah, I definitely would have took a penalty. So I was gutted that I couldn't finish the game. Sitting on the sidelines and watching it was terrible. But ultimately, again, putting a bit of my selfish head on again, I managed to get the goal that broke Brian Clough's post-war record of goals in a season. So sitting there naturally delighted that I'd done that. Did something that I always dreamt about, scoring at Wembley. But I would have loved to have been on the pitch longer because, who knows, maybe I'd have got another 1 or 2 and maybe I'd have got a hat-trick like Mendonca did, and maybe we'd have, but it's all ifs and buts. And so, it was disappointing to not have got the win.
Worked out in the end.
Yeah.
I'm skipping forward quite a bit here, but when Quinny took over as chairman, when Niall took over as chairman, he spoke about finding a note or something like that with 2 bids of 20 million or so rejected for yourself. I can't remember if it's right, but I'm sure it was Leeds and Aston Villa.
Yep.
Were you aware of the bids, and did you ever consider leaving at that point?
I was aware. I was aware there was interest from Leeds, but the Aston Villa one is funny actually because I was away on England duty when it broke. I get a phone call. It was early in the morning. It was about 8:30 in the morning, and my phone was ringing, and I answered it, and it was my wife. And she went, "Have you seen the front page of the Sun?" So straight and naturally, I think, blimey, what have I been up to? I haven't been out for a couple of weeks. I haven't been a naughty boy. So I immediately panicked. And I went, why? What's up? She said, Aston Villa have put a £15 million bid in for you. And it made the front page. So naturally, I was like, no, I don't, I haven't seen it. So anyway, I put the phone, I spoke to my agent. He says, I'll come back to you. So yeah, apparently they did put a bid in with John Gregg, who was the manager at the time. And Reedy, to be fair to him, within the hour, he rang me and said, listen, you're not going nowhere. And I said, I've not even had a chance to think about it. He said, you're not going anywhere, just to let you know. He says, I want you to sign a new contract. So I never, part of me thought about it. But as soon as Reedy said that, and I sat and analysed, and I thought about, where we're going with the football club, how well we're doing in the Premier League, I felt we could really kick on. So ultimately, we ironed out a new contract, and I have to say, Sir Bob at the time was fantastic in giving me, I think, what at the time was the biggest contract that Sunderland had ever given to a player.
Yeah.
So naturally, I signed it because I was more than happy where I was.
You mentioned Brian Clough before. Obviously, your debut Premiership season, the Borough game, I remember quite well. You went on the pitch with the shirt, I think it was Clough number 9 or something on the back. Did you ever get a chance to speak with Brian about Sunderland or football in general? No, I didn't, unfortunately, because, it was quite sad, really, to see. Brian, he wasn't well at the time. Yeah.
All I remember that evening was, obviously, I was told that I was going to be presented with a shirt by, the legend that was Brian Clough. And, when he introduced me on the pitch, he was waiting, and you could just tell that he wasn't well.
Yeah.
And he just said, well done, congratulations. I said, thank you. I said, it's an honour to meet you. And we're having our photo. And I just remember, he just kept kicking the back of my heels, like kept tapping me. and I was kind of thinking, what's he doing? But I knew at the time, he wasn't in a good place.
Yeah.
So no, I never really, I would love to have had 10 minutes, 15 minutes sit and chat with him, but it was just before the game.
Yeah.
So no, I never got a chance to chat to the main man, but it was an honour really to be presented with that shirt and to have broke his record was great feeling for myself.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, you like scoring against the Mags, which I quite enjoyed as well. How did you develop such a knack for it, and which is your favourite derby goal that you scored, or which one gave you the most pleasure, shall we say?
Well, I would say the most obvious one is the one at St James's. I think when I came up, or certainly when I signed for Sunderland, being that southern boy that didn't really know anything about the north, I didn't even know that Sunderland Newcastle was a derby. So when I first signed, people straight away, which I found very strange, was that we weren't even in the Premier League, Newcastle were, and people are talking about can't wait to play against Newcastle. You'll never experience anything like that. And I'm thinking, well, they're not even in our league. Why are you going on about it? So obviously, when we got promoted, as I did every year in June when the fixtures come out. As soon as that day come out, wherever I was, you go and buy the paper and just see what the fixtures. And the first one I looked for was the Newcastle fixture. First and foremost, who we got the first game.
Yeah.
Second, the Newcastle, then who we've got Boxing Day. Because that determines whether you get the day at home, Christmas Day. So, yeah, it was quite early on in the season, away at St James's. And I think leading into the game, it was incredible, the build-up. And people telling us that we hadn't won there for a very, very long time. And I went into the game full of confidence. I was on fire, scoring lots of goals, had scored lots of goals in the first 2 seasons. People were talking about me and Shearer, this and that. So I was buzzing. I wanted to... It's funny, actually, because I think I'd scored, 60 goals up until then. Or 60 something, including the Premier League goals. But I still never felt that I was part of Sunderland's folklore. Wasn't a legend just yet, until you'd scored a winner in a derby. And I just felt that night with the goal, people say you're meant to cross it. Well, believe me, when I turned around and saw Quinn in the box, I thought about crossing it and I thought, sod that, I ain't crossing it, I'm going for goal. And it was probably one of the sweetest chips I'd hit all my career. And it was only until after that game I really felt like I'd become a legend at the club. And, I'd only been there 2 and a bit seasons, but it was incredible. I don't know, I don't know, I know I scored a fair few against them, but I scored a fair few against a lot of teams. So it's just because of who it's against. And as I said earlier, the 2-2 draw, the second game that season, as I say about atmosphere, the second goal was the atmosphere. When people say the roof came off, it's just a cliche. It really did feel like the roof come off. And was a great experience. But they were fantastic games to play in, and I was lucky enough to get quite a few goals in them.
I think my favourite one would be the chip as well.
Yeah, no, I think just for technique and the way it went in and where it was and the conditions that night as well in front of our supporters. My missus was there up in the gods as well. You couldn't really hear them, but it was
There's only a few hundred there as well, wasn't it?
There was, yeah. It was a great night.
Brilliant night. Now, obviously, the first Premiership season went really, really well. You had Rodney Marsh with the whole "you only score 6 goals" comment and all that, and but you've been getting in the England team just before that, and it was kind of unheard of at that point when it was like what would have been Division 1, as we would call it then. Player getting, you and Mickey Gray getting in, but you obviously the form continued, so you continued in the England squad. Getting towards sort of Euro 2000, you were quite evidently the top scorer in the league at that point.
Yeah.
And I think everyone expected you to get much more of a chance than what you got. So you've got two sides to it. You've got Kevin Keegan's the man who's picked you from like being in what would have been the second tier at that point, which is a big accolade. But then he's also not picked you when realistically you should have been picked, especially in most fans' eyes here. So what was your relationship like with Kevin Keegan? How much frustration do you feel from that? And did you ever feel like being at Sunderland held you back from being picked more often than like the way that Darren Bent maybe was when he was here?
Yeah, there's three questions in there as well. I think first and foremost, I was delighted to me and Mickey to get picked for the England squad when we were in Division 1 at the time, and it was unheard of. So, great achievement for both of us. My relationship with Kevin Keegan was fantastic. Loved working with him because he was a striker.
Yeah.
I grew up watching him. He was a legend of the game. So actually working with a man, did a lot of one-on-one sessions with him because he was a striker. So he would tend to hang back after training and do extra with us. So it was a privilege. Yeah, I think the frustrations of getting into the Euro 2000 squad, having finished the season as a Premier League's top goal scorer, and as you mentioned in the intro about winning the European Golden Boot, going into a major tournament, I thought I would at least get some minutes on the pitch. So of course, when we get knocked out in the group stages, we're sitting in games, and I'm sitting on the bench. We're not playing well, we're not scoring, this and that. And I'm thinking, surely I've got a chance of going on. But, am I bitter about it? Not really. I would love to have had a go about it. I'm privileged that I sat on the bench in a major tournament. No ill feeling towards Kevin Keegan. At that time, I was competing with some top class strikers. But I think you probably, if you ask Kevin now, if he was honest, he'd probably turn around and say, because he's an honest guy, I probably should have put Kevin on. And, we couldn't have done any worse. So, I was disappointed, but no regrets. Do I think that I would have had more caps if I hadn't been at Sunderland? I have to be honest, yes, I think I probably would have.
Yeah.
And that's no slight on Sunderland. As I said earlier, I could have moved on, but I didn't because I chose to stay at Sunderland because I felt that was the right thing. If I had gone, to an Aston Villa or a Leeds, also I think I was linked with Arsenal at the time. Certainly, if I'd gone to Arsenal, I probably would have got more caps, but I have no regrets because the way I answer it now is that I was competing at that time with about 6 top-class England strikers. I think if I was around nowadays, I'm only competing with Harry Kane.
Yeah.
Maybe, Vardy's retired now. I'm sure I'd have doubled my caps or trebled them. I was playing in an era where there was some really, really tough, stiff, competition, and I feel privileged really to have gone to a major championship and get 8 caps for my country.
Why do you think? Because from the outside looking in, people see Sunderland as a massive club. I think everyone sees that in the Northeast with Sunderland, Newcastle, and maybe Middlesbrough. You're quite a big club as well. And when it comes to England, you have like yourself, Darren Bent, even Jermaine Defoe to an extent, were kind of not largely ignored, but not given the chance that we felt they were deserved. Why do you think being at a club like Aston Villa or Leeds gives you more of a chance? Because we're still huge.
I wouldn't say they would now, would they? If he was playing for Aston Villa, I think at the time, Villa and Leeds, their history. I think the history of the two clubs, is bigger than Sunderland. Certainly Villa with the European Cups that they've won. Having staged numerous FA Cup semi-finals, what they've achieved. That's the only reason. I think Sunderland, Newcastle and Middlesbrough, because of the sheer stature of the clubs, the size of them, the supporters, make it a huge, huge football club. I think it's just history. You're battling against history of the club. But, in terms of playing, it shouldn't matter.
No.
It shouldn't matter one iota, because if you're playing for a team, and I think Gareth Southgate, to be fair to him, doesn't bother him anymore. He'll pick players from anywhere. If you're playing well, you're English, you're scoring goals, you're producing the goods, you will get in the England squad. It's as simple as that, which I think is great. A lot of people might argue about that now. Anyone can get an England cap. There has been times where I'd probably argue about that, but I think, we can't be picking and choosing now, because we haven't got enough English players to be able to do that. So, I think Gareth's been a breath of fresh air, like Kevin Keegan was when he picked me and Michael, out Division 1. And at that time, a lot of eyebrows were raised, but it doesn't matter. We were playing well. I was scoring goals. Mickey was playing well. We deserved our chance.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Talking about strike partners that you've had, I'm sure you've been asked who your favourite strike partner is. Niall Quinn, I assume, is probably going to be the answer. But aside from Niall Quinn and your time at Sunderland, who is your favourite striker to play alongside? I know. I had to think about this one too.
It's a really, really tough one because I never really struck up a 15, 20 game partnership with anyone else. It was always bit parts. Deitch had spells, Denny Dicchio, where he come in and, he was kind of a light for light stature. But, Deitch, I would have to say, and it's not a slight on him, wasn't, a patch on Big Niall.
Yeah.
Tor Andre Flo come in, was disappointing. And, that never really got going. Michael Bridges, I enjoyed playing with him. He's a good player.
Great player.
He's a good player. But it's a tough one. It's hard to answer that because, when I struck up such a great partnership with Niall, it was always when I had to play with someone else, you think, hurry up, Niall, get fit. So, we tried when he left with Tor and Marcus Stewart.
Yeah.
It just never felt right, if I'm being honest. It's a bit, I don't want to have a go at anyone, but it just never felt right playing with anyone bar Niall. So, and I think probably the stats will prove that.
Yeah, I mean, everyone felt the loss of Quinny, I think, when he retired.
Yeah, and I think, before I came to the club, if I hadn't come to the club, you probably would have lost Niall a lot earlier. So I think we were both great for each other.
Yeah.
I give him a new lease of life, and he's big enough to admit that now, given that at least another 2 or 3 years of his career. And, probably 2 or 3 years of his career that have probably been some of the best.
Yeah.
The memories and what he went on to achieve, and then obviously going on to be chairman. So, we were good for each other.
Moving on to your final season at the club, I could ask you about Peter Reid, but I'm assuming your relationship with Reid was great and probably still is to this day, because what a brilliant manager for us he was, and what a great time it was. Howard Wilkinson was the man that replaced him, which was, should we say, left field. What are your memories of Howard Wilkinson? Is there any stories that stick out for you?
Loads. I think my memories was disappointment, really.
Yeah.
Great man he is. Been fantastic for the game of football and what he's done. But it just wasn't right. It wasn't the right appointment. I think it was like chalk and cheese with him and Steve Cotterill. You had one of our first UEFA licensed coaches in the country. He was young, enthusiastic, had all good ideas. And then you put him alongside Howard, who was quite old school. It just didn't feel right. And I think when the appointment was made, we all got over. We was all disappointed, and I was hugely disappointed that Reedy left the club, but accepted that football's football. Results weren't going. Something had to happen, and you accept that. Once you get over that, you kind of bit of you is like excited, and right, who's coming in now to try and get us going? And then when you hear all sorts of rumours, so and so's been spotted at the stadium, and then no one even guessed that it would be Howard Wilkinson. So. I've never really asked Sir Bob Murray about that one, and I've probably made a conscious effort not to ask him about that one, because I think he probably knew that it wasn't the right decision. But to be fair to Howard, he come in, he tried everything, as you would when you come in when a club's struggling. But I thought at the time we just needed someone with perhaps Steve Cotterill's bubbliness just to try and get a feel-good factor back to the club. And Howard just kind of, it was meetings after meetings, and it just dragged the players down.
Yeah.
You know, and having been on the coaching side now, had a decent stint at it, you have to find out what makes players tick, what's going to get the best out of them in a short period of time. Not sitting in a classroom before training, not sitting in a classroom after training, analysing training, sitting in meetings about a meeting, and it just got the players down.
Yeah.
So for me, it wasn't a great appointment. And I think, unfortunately, when Mick come in, it had gone.
Too far gone.
Yeah, it was too far gone. And, he was fighting an uphill battle. So, it was a strange one. But he tried everything, and you have to give him credit for that.
We had Matt Piper, we've had Thomas Butler in the studio, and we discussed Howard Wilkinson with him, and the story about David Attenborough.
He did another one. He comes in before one of the games, and let's say he tried everything. He got a company in one day. We had to go upstairs in the stadium and sit in a circle, and this bloke come in and started talking, and this guy goes into big companies in the country and tries to solve problems, find out what the issue is, to try and get a good team spirit and iron all them problems out. So this is during the week. Anyway, we come in on the Saturday. Howard's comes in. Everyone's sat down. We're all thinking, what's he gonna talk about now? What's going to happen? So he comes in with a plastic carrier bag in his hand, and I'm thinking, and straight away all the lads are looking at each other, thinking, what's he doing here now? So he's got I think it might have been a Tesco's or a Sainsbury's plastic carrier bag. It's like, what's he got in his hand? So he starts walking up and down doing his team talk, and he starts going on about, who's going to stand up, who's going to take the reins, who's going to grasp the nettle, which one of you is going to do that? He said, because I tell you what, I'll grasp the nettle if none of you do it. So at that point, he opens a carrier bag, puts his hand in a carrier bag, and brings out a great big bunch of stinging nettles. So he says, there, I've grasped the nettle, I've done it, I showed that I'm a man. So he goes round, and who wants to take him? So all the lads are like, no, I'm not taking them. No one took him. So anyway, he puts them back in the bag, carries on his team talk. But while he's doing his team talk, you think, I ain't listening to him, or I just want to watch his hand. And you could see him while he's doing his team talk. He's like shaking his hand as if it stung the hell out of his hand. So it was like I say, you have to give him credit for trying everything.
Yeah.
And that's the way football's gone now. He started it really with bringing in psychologists, problem-solving people. He brought in the Geese video about who's the best team in the world. We're all sat there, and he'd go, who's the best team in the world? Man United, Real Madrid, Barcelona. No, press his play on the video, and it's a flock of geese. And he said that's the best team in the world because they fly in a V formation. They create drag, which helps each other through. So the one at the top of the V, when he gets tired, he drops to the back, and then someone else goes to the front, and it creates drag, and he'll drag that person along, which nowadays, you see that all the time. And but it was a bit bizarre at the time.
Because you're going from someone like Bobby Saxton as well, not just really, but Bobby Saxton. Yeah. I mean, the stories you hear about Bobby Saxton is brilliant.
Yeah, well, it's different, and it's different. But when you look back now and think about it, at the time you laughed about it. Well, you didn't. We were in a serious situation.
Yeah.
But you just thought this ain't helping. But nowadays it's common. It's common.
When you look at, I think, the area as well, I mean, obviously I'm going really deep here, but I think the area, Sunderland needs someone like Peter Reid, Bobby Saxton. There seems to be a specific attitude, I think, needed at Sunderland, and I think someone like Howard Wilkinson just didn't.
Yeah, it didn't. It just didn't work. It didn't work. So, it was a bizarre appointment, and like I say, the right appointment at the time probably would have been Mick McCarthy. Yeah. Because I think he'd have had enough time to turn it round. But unfortunately, when he come in, the squad had gone, the club had gone, and it was very tough for him.
You just got on my next question there, thankfully, which is good. Talking about Mick McCarthy, when he came, I think it was just before the Bolton game, and I think if we'd won the Bolton game, maybe we could have had half a hope, but we went down with 19 points. It was too far gone. We know that. So it comes to the end of the season, we lose, off the top of my head, yourself, Tommy Sorensen, Quinede retired that season, Gavin McCann. I know obviously every player has an ambition to play in the Premiership, and you were still really young at that point. But was there ever a part of you that wanted to stay, or did the club ever try to convince you to stay, or was it?
Yeah, there was part of me wanting to stay, but it was a combination of things, really. As I told you, when Sunderland rewarded me with the best contract that they'd given a player, naturally, like any club, when you get relegated, and we've seen it in the last 2 seasons, some people lose their jobs, and ultimately they try to offload the top earning players to try and cut the budget. And I was no different, and I was made well aware And I never had a clause in my contract about, wages being cut, 'cause we never thought we'd get relegated. Because I signed when we finished 7th, and then 7th, we thought we were on the way up. If anything, we'd all be signing new contracts, but, it wasn't to be. So there was no clause. And it was, one of those. Either I personally would have to have said, I'll tell you what, I will take a 50% cut to stay at the club, or no, I'm not. I'll move on and stay in the Premier League. And, at the time, I've got a young family. I'm still relatively young. So it was a case of, it's time to move on. I would love to have stayed at the club, don't get me wrong. I'd love to have played all my career here. But football being football, it just doesn't happen like that. So, financially, the club had to get rid of me. I think they got 3.5 million from Southampton. Yeah. So, it was time to move on. Like you say, we lost a fair few players. They lost a fair few players that summer. It was a disappointing end to my time at Sunderland, I have to say. Yeah. I think, I didn't particularly get on with Mick. We had a bit of a falling out, and, he's made it clear to me since then. But it's one of those, it's football. I think I'd kind of accepted that I was moving on. And because I started back pre-season. And I think it took a couple of weeks before I moved.
You were still here when the season began.
It was. You're right, correct. And
Forest game, I think.
Yeah, Mick never put me in the squad. I had to train here on my own, and I felt just I was getting treated a little bit, after what I'd done for the club. But yeah, listen, that's football, and the quicker I could have moved on at that time was better for everyone, really.
Yeah.
So when the bid come in. It was, I wouldn't say it was a relief, because I was gutted to leave and I never really got a chance to say goodbye to the supporters, but it's football.
You almost came back,
yeah.
Which I was devastated about that you didn't, looking back, because I remember it was around the Bury game, and the only reason I remember that the timescale so well is I went down to the Bury game and Bobby Saxon came out and someone said, is Kevin Phillips signing? He said, no, and he's going to West Brom.
Yeah.
To the fact, so we kind of knew just a few hours before I think you went. But I have read that at one point you agreed to come, but I know for a fact that you stayed because of the family. I know it was better for you to stay in the Midlands, stay with your family, as you said, young family. At that point, did you know Roy Keane was due to take over? Would that have changed your mind?
No. If I'm being honest, no. I didn't. I agreed to come up and talk to Niall. I didn't agree any financial thing. Didn't agree a contract. I just said I'll come up and have a chat. I got permission from Martin O'Neill. To come up and talk to Niall. Niall said to me, listen, we got a big announcement about the manager. And I said to Niall, who is it? Having been the coach, he said, Kev, I can't tell you. I don't think it would have made any difference.
Yeah.
But I still would have come up and spoke. But being football, once it was made clear that I was able to leave Aston Villa, we had lots of phone calls from clubs saying, can we talk to you? Really, it only kind of happened at West Brom because West Bromwich was on the way to Sunderland from where I am. So Brian Robson rung and just said, look, would you just do us a courtesy of popping into the training ground on your way to Sunderland just to have a quick chat, just see what your thoughts are about, what we can offer you, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So I went, yeah, no problem. So knowing football the way I do now, once a club gets you into a training ground, if they want you that much, and don't forget, at that time I'd thought about it, initially when Niall rung me and said, would you come back? Would you be interested? My initial reaction was yes, without even thinking about it because of, the relationship I've got with the place. As soon as I put the phone down, you start thinking about it. Went home, spoke to the missus about it, spoke to people that I know about it, looked at players that have gone back to clubs before, and has it really been the same as when they were there before?
Most times not.
No. Actually. So I had to, weigh all those options up, and I just thought, I'm well liked up there. I've broke records. You could say I've become a legend at the club. If I go back and foul, that'll hurt me. That'll leave a bitter taste in my mouth for the rest of my career. So part of me was, I didn't want to ruin that. So when I had the option to go in and speak to West Brom, went in, Brian, and as I said, once a club gets you in there, they're not going to let you go. And Brian Robson would not let me leave that training ground without signing. So they kind of threw everything at us. They pretty much took over my contract at Aston Villa. Well, they did take it over. And then I had to make the phone. I just went, right, that's decided. I don't have to move home. I wasn't keen on moving again. We'd only moved to the Midlands. We'd only been in there a year.
Yeah, it was a season previous.
Yeah, one season. So we'd only literally just got settled in a new house. And I just thought, you know what? I think it'd be in the long run the best decision to stay in the Midlands and not go back. So it was an uncomfortable phone call to make to Big Niall. He wasn't particularly pleased, but I think in hindsight now it was the right decision.
Talking about coming back as well, many people have called for your return to the club since you've retired and gone into coaching. Sometimes people talk about management even. Has a return ever been on the cards?
No, nothing. As you say, I think the last 2 or 3 times that Sunderland have looked for a new manager, my name's always come up. It's always been at the top of the betting. The only time there was anything was, I think it was not last summer, the summer before, when the club was up for sale. Was it last summer or the summer before they were up for summer before, wasn't it? Yeah, when Simon Grayson got the job. Yes. I'm playing golf in a tournament at the Belfry, and I get a phone call from Tony Adams, believe it or not. And Tony said, Kev, he says he was putting a consortium together to buy the football club. Mm-hmm. And he said, listen, if we get it, we'd love you to come in to be the manager. And naturally, again, without any thought, I went, yeah, I would love to. He says, well, we're at the early stages. We're going to put our bid in next week. And, once we know what's happening, we'll let you know if we get it. We want you to come in. So I was like, yeah, of course, no problem, Tony. They put their bid in the next week, and I don't think it was anywhere near, what Ellis Short was looking for, and it didn't happen. So that's probably that's the closest I've ever come to having any conversation with a club regarding my a return to the football club. So my returns now are coming up, chatting to you, coming to watch the game as just as a supporter, and I enjoy doing that.
Probably a silly question, but say you were given the chance tomorrow, they said first team coach.
No, I wouldn't come up as a first team coach.
Do you feel ready going to manage?
Yeah, I'd like a crack at it. I wouldn't. I know I wouldn't entertain that.
So we asked about obviously your favourite goals. Before I asked about your favourite derby goals. So before we go on to your sort of favourite goal, maybe for Sunderland, one thing I wanted to ask. I was there when he scored for Villa. Thanks for that. That was horrible. How did that feel for you? Because I remember it was in those days when players kind of still did celebrate. And I remember you didn't, and the whole stadium kind of went silent, like we knew it was happening. But how did you feel doing that?
It was a weird feeling. I think firstly coming back and playing as an opposition player, literally just the build up, going to the Marriott at Durham. Because I'd been there many times. We was a member of the leisure club there, and just going in there as an opposition player, and people coming up to us and, just saying, we gutted you left the club and this and that. I have to say, I've never enjoyed playing against my ex-clubs. Never particularly had good games. Yeah. But I suppose it was sod's law, wasn't it, that I was gonna score, and I think it was the opening goal, wasn't it? A glancing header.
Yeah.
So I'd already made my mind up that I wasn't going to celebrate. And when the ball come across, and it's just I've nicked it in the goal. I just straight away, I knew that obviously the Villa supporters, players are going to jump all over us. I made a conscious decision that I'm going to walk back to the centre circle. And I have to say it was a weird feeling because it was quiet. All I could hear was the Villa supporters singing Super Kev. And then all of a sudden the Sunderland supporters started singing Super Kev as well. And I just thought, you're getting sung about from your own supporters, but also from the away supporters having just scored. So it was a bit of a weird feeling. And, I came off in that game, and I think we won 4-0 in the end, or 4-1.
3-1.
3-1 was it? 3-1. So yeah, it was a bizarre feeling.
Are you pleased you came back with Birmingham? Because you came back a few years later, and it was a very, very different atmosphere. You came on, I think we won 3-1. You came on as for that, I think the last 10, 15 minutes. I think most people knew that might be the last time we'd see you at the stadium light as a player. You got if I remember, standing ovation going off the pitch, coming onto the pitch as well. Yeah. Are you pleased that happened? So your last performance at the stadium light wasn't the Villa game, basically? Yeah,
and don't forget, I came back for West Brom and I got booed by a few people.
I do remember that. Yeah, I was going to try and avoid it.
I don't know if I started the game or what.
You were on the bench that
I was on the bench, and I remember warming up, and, of course, when I ran up, I made it, and I got a lot of claps, but then I heard a lot of people shouting, Phillips, you're blah, 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 this and that. And I just thought, I know it's football, you expect it. So, that was kind of, I suppose, a little bit hurtful. But, certainly when I come back for Birmingham and got the send, I think we all knew that it's probably the last time I was going to be playing at Stadium of Light. Although I went on to play for a few more years after that. you just never know. But yeah, it was a fantastic send off, and yeah, it was nice. Like I say, I never really got a chance to say goodbye to the fans, and actually tomorrow I'm going to do the halftime draw on the pitch, so it'd be nice to give the supporters a wave tomorrow, and might get a few boos tomorrow as well.
No, I doubt it.
No, I will do it from the Walsall supporters. That's actually closer to me than any of the teams where I live now. But, no, it was nice. Yeah, it was a night. That was nice.
I think finally, it's probably a bit of a cheesy question to ask, but I wanted to ask it anyway. I think it's a nice ending. What does Sunderland mean to you?
Well, it means everything, really. It's where I made my name. You know, wherever I go now, wherever, it's amazing, really. You know, and you can be anywhere in the world, and I found that there's always a Sunderland supporter somewhere, and and I tend to get recognised wherever. You think no one's going to know me, and all of a sudden you go, it's Kevin Phillips, and it'll be a Sunderland supporter, and obviously because I play for nine teams, and the 9 teams, when I analyse it now, have all been big, you know, decent clubs. So there's always supporters all over the world now, but ultimately I made my name here at Sunderland, and you know that lived with me forever. First and foremost, Watford. I owe everything to Watford Football Club for giving me the opportunity of being a professional. Glenn Roeder, ironically, he's an ex-Newcastle guy, but he was a guy that I rang when I had the chance to come here. Him and Alec Chamberlain, because I was at Watford with a pair of them. Yeah, Alex said go. He said a fantastic place. And Glenn Roeder said, you get the chance to go and play in the North East, you got to go. He said, because I'm telling you now, it's the best place to play football in the world. He said, when it's going well. He said, but unfortunately, if it's not going so well, it's the worst place. And that always stuck with me. So that was another reason why I came here with the attitude of, I want to do well.
Yeah.
So ultimately, you know, my career is remembered for Sunderland. So yeah, it's always great to come back.
Amazing. Thanks so much for doing it, Kevin.
No problem.
Massive thanks for doing
Just
it.
make sure you get the aircon working next time.
Yeah. For those listening, we're all sweating here. The aircon's broken. We're all having a bit of a dribble thing, aren't we? We'll leave it on that.
Some exchange betting companies run short-lived promotions, like months-long offers of low commission. At BetDAG, we wanted to change the way we did things, so we set our commission at 2% permanently. That's 2% on football, horse racing, golf, almost any sport. 2%. That's just one way that BetDAG is changing for the better. For the better, like you. BetDAG, the 2% commission exchange.
Over 18s only, please gamble responsibly.